UVARs cast.
Welcome. This is the UVARs cast sponsored by United VARs, and I'm your host, Anna Collette. United VARs is a global alliance of SAP solution providers for the mid-market. With over 70 members in more than 100 countries, together we serve all types of SAP rollouts and integrations across the world. You can find us at www.united-vars, that's VARS.com. Hello and welcome to episode 6, Sustainable Cost Management for SMEs with Zero-Based Budgeting. In this episode, we'll discuss what zero-based budgeting is, why it's becoming popular again, and we'll share tips on how organisations, especially SMEs, can successfully implement a zero-based budgeting approach. I'm joined today by Fatih Anank, who is the Deputy General Manager of Sales at Datasofts. Datasofts is an SAP Platinum Partner and is the United VARs member for Turkey. Datasofts has over 20 years' experience in helping companies achieve their business goals with SAP technology, and they've developed the ZPAC solution that enables companies to implement zero-based budgeting on SAP Analytics Cloud. We're also joined today by Ercan Balkoç, who's a partner at McKinsey & Company in Istanbul, and is a subject matter expert on zero-based budgeting and cost transformation. McKinsey is a global management consultancy firm and trusted advisor to some of the world's leading businesses, governments, and institutions. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start with a short description, if you please, of zero-based budgeting.
So zero-based budgeting is basically a sustainable cost management approach and resource allocation approach. What you typically do is you create the budget from zero every year, and you build it on the key cost drivers. You do not have any other buckets in the budget. So each year you reevaluate the cost that you need to do, the drivers for these costs, and redo the budget. And the critical part is you bring the full transparency to the company, and also all the budget owners are fully part of the process. It's not a finance-driven approach. It's fully everybody is part of the process. And the way that zero-based budgeting is done, which also allows this cost transformation, is embedded into the company culture and governance. A critical element to enable this is also the digital part. Digitally, you optimize the timeline, the time frame, the transparency, and the way you build up the budget from zero. And at the end of the day, the budget is followed throughout the year and could be updated accordingly by all parties. So it's a tool that enables a sustainable cost transformation.
Why do you think this approach is making a comeback?
Well, basically, there are several trends that drives this comeback. I mean, first of all, the new normal that we are in and the inflation and the cost increase is a main driver. Of course, it's always in the agendas of the companies. We know that regardless of the sector, more than 2/3, maybe 3/4 of all the companies put cost optimization and cost reduction in top 3 targets, under top 3 goals. So this is a key driver. Second, the new world that we are in is quite volatile, and this volatility requires a clear approach to forecast, to do scenarios on the budgets throughout the year. So budget is not a tool that's done at the end of the year, which you wouldn't visit until the end of the next year nowadays. It's a tool that you monthly track all the opportunities. So zero-based budgeting allows the companies to sustainably develop arrange their resources to invest and sustainably do the cost transformation throughout many years. And on top of that, what enabled the new revival of this zero-based budgeting is again the digitalization era that we are in. So zero-based budgeting is not a new concept. It has been applied over the course of last 30 years, maybe. But with the new tools, it's now much easier to benefit from zero-based budgeting.
Thank you. You mentioned sustainability as one of the main benefits. Can you explain a little more about that?
Yeah, sure. Why sustainability is critical? Because zero-based budgeting is not a one-time activity within the company. It typically transforms into zero-based budgeting. It requires a major push at the beginning to basically transform the whole system and the approach of budgeting into the zero-based budgeting. But for years and years, this approach is implemented. So it's quite a sustainable approach where you would definitely use it at every budgeting period itself. Second, the cost reduction is, as we know, like typically companies have runs of cost reduction initiatives. But what you do is with zero-based budgeting, you integrate this cost optimization approach into the daily life and overall annual cycles of the company itself. So with the zero-based budgeting approach, every year there's a cost optimization push. There are some other benefits too. For this zero-based budgeting to work, companies need to embed this approach into their culture. So this approach gives a full, I would say, cost conscious culture. But not only cost conscious, it gives a resource allocation consciousness in the sense that zero-based budgeting doesn't give always cost reduction. Sometimes you deliberately choose to prioritize other areas of specific investments over others. What zero-based budgeting gives is you basically think each year everything you from scratch, from zero, so that you have an optimized view all around your cost and business building. So this enables an electrification of the culture, I would say, because all parties, all budget owners are part of the whole process. They need to join, they need to create their budget from zero. Every month, they basically check the budgets. There are new roles such as cost category owners, which again helps significantly readjust the culture of the company. And third, I would say, with this approach, with this cost-conscious as well as resource allocation mindset, companies have the opportunity to address the full potential of their overall business. So that's a very critical outcome as well. And this is enabled by the full transparency at the beginning of the process.
Thank you. Fatih, in your opinion, what's the best way to implement a zero-based budgeting, also known as ZBB approach, successfully?
Thank you, Anna, also for the invitation, and really happy to be here. You asked about the implementation. So just to clarify a little bit for our audience, our role as a solution partner begins with the implementation, just like you said, because we are not like McKinsey or like management consultancy responsibilities. Our responsibility begins after all those concepts and the approach is already decided, and after all the workshops which are completed, and after that our responsibility and our part begins as an implementation partner. So after this handover to us, after all those conceptual design and the critical management decisions that will give the real benefits that Ercan just mentioned, we begin to think about how to implement this approach as an operation with the technology. I will just highlight some keywords that Ercan mentioned, which is the first one, cultural transformation. The second one is technology, and the third one is continuous planning. Because when we think about the successful implementation of zero-based budgeting approach on the platforms and on the systems, actually we need to take care of and we need to take into consideration these critical three keywords. Everything begins with a cultural transformation, as Ercan already mentioned. But this cultural transformation means an organizational change in the organizational hierarchy of the, our clients, which wants to implement the zero-based budgeting implementation approach and implementation. So first of all, we need to take care of this change with the actuals and with the realities of our clients on those platforms. So it must be a flexible organizational chart changes on those platforms for those implementations. And the second one is technology. The second keyword was the technology, which consists of, which includes the flexible planning platforms like Excel-based planning, which our clients are really fond of and very familiar with. And after that, checking all the reports with the actuals and with the variance differentiation dashboards on their only one platform. And the third one was the continuous planning, because as already Ercan mentioned, with the traditional methods, we were just budgeting like twice a year maximum. And after that, we were checking the same budgets for the whole year and reporting all the same budgets for the whole year. But now the platforms and the implementations must be made so flexible that every member who involves in that process could easily enter their budgets, revise their budgets with rollouts, with the changing conditions of the economical indicators, and after that visualize them with the best performing reports and with the detailed and the summarized dashboards for the board also.
Thank you. Ercan, what do you think?
Totally agree with Fatih. And to build on that, typically this process, if you do zero-based budgeting for the first time, and every year, of course, it's again redone, but the way that you do it is you start with the full transparency, the transparency of your costs, of your basically vendors, suppliers, how much you spend, etc. That transparency phase is quite critical. Especially, it's very critical also for the CEOs and CFOs to see the full allocation of the resources within the company. Second, you start the process with the cost transformation, let's say, phase, where you would initially do what we call typically an initiation process, idea generation, and define ideas together with the whole organization. And it's never outside in, it's always with the organization. You develop ideas for optimizing the cost. And second, within this, again, cost transformation, you do the substantiation of those ideas, and you select the key ideas that you would implement for this cost transformation, and you sometimes do reallocation. Let me give an example. For example, for marketing, in many cases, we typically transfer the overall spend from the traditional to digital. So we sometimes, it's not always cost reduction, as I mentioned. You sometimes increase the overall budget, because it's basically rethinking the overall business process. And with this cost transformation, then companies typically turn into the budgeting from zero phase. Now the budgeting starts. But the whole process prior to that, which is also accompanied by this governance elements, introducing cost category owners, organizational requirements, transformation offices, etc., which supports the whole process, as well as the digital enablers, early implementations of what we would do, what would be our basically templates for our budgets, etc., creating those, which Fatih mentioned, are enablers. And then you run the budgeting process. It's not the typical way. It's not, you do not put, let's say, an X% increase in last year's budget. You basically reconsider the whole spend that you need to do within that year for each specific subcategory. And when I say subcategory, I mean logistics, under logistics, how many trucks we will use, what would be the cost of these trucks, etc., in that granularity level. And then basically you build up. And if you ask me what is critical within all this process, I would say definitely the top management support. For this whole implementation to be successful, full participation of all the top suites, C-level, as well as, I would say, it will of course start from the CEO, but all the C-levels, not only the CFO, should participate and support the whole process and re-energize their teams to be part of this process.
Fatih, how should companies implement ZBB in the context of a multi-country SAP rollout?
Actually, we experienced some of the biggest holdings in Turkey with the zero-based budgeting approach. And those giant holdings had also subsidiaries all over the world, like over 20 countries. Apart from Turkey, they had operations. So Ercan told something very precious while he was talking. He told about learning from each other. So the multinational companies or the companies who has subsidiaries all over the world can implement this zero-based budgeting approach, with the idea of learning from every country and every company. So it's so easy to roll out, and it's so easy to spread the new budgeting approach when you once complete the template that you are going to work on. After that, it's just a matter of a little time to roll out this approach to all over the world, actually.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Ercan?
Very briefly, I can say this whole international corporations where you implement all around the world, it gives the opportunity to phase your implementation. So you do a pilot in one country where you feel much more comfortable, and then you can roll out even in different phases. So that's, I think, opportunity number one. And number two is that you have the internal benchmarks within several countries where you can use while you are deciding the cost levels, the targets on the next year's budget.
And what do you see the differences are for SMEs wanting to use the ZBB approach compared to larger enterprises?
As I mentioned, in the large corporations, you have this like internal benchmarking opportunity, as well as you need some sort of a more coordinated central, I would say, approach to run the whole process for the SMEs. But at the end of the day, the benefits are the same. The way you run the whole process, which I mentioned, this transparency, cost transformation, and budgeting from zero, they are the same. But for SMEs, I think it would be much easier to coordinate the whole process. Whereas for the large companies, multinationals or holding companies, you would need a central coordination to ensure standardization, because at the end of the day, you would want to see the whole organization under the same standard, same budgeting to give like the full transparency. I think that would be the main difference. So involvement of different parties, more central approach, but at the end of the day, the benefits would be the same.
Fatih, I know Datasofts has developed a solution for implementing ZBB on SAP Analytics Cloud. Could you tell us a bit about the solution, why you developed it, what it does, and a bit about the implementation approach?
After we implemented many zero-based budgeting projects as a technology partner, we decided to create a ready package for those who would like to implement this approach as soon as possible once they are ready to work on the platform side. So the approach is with some of the templates who could be adjusted and fit sized regarding the needs of the organizations. We have ready input screens, we have ready dashboards, we have ready processes for the zero-based budgeting approach, which can be adjusted very easily because every company probably will need different solutions for their zero-based budgeting plannings. So it's a ready package that could be adjusted very quickly and easily for their needs, like a head start, I can say. It works on SAP Analytics Cloud, which is a cloud platform that we use both for planning and both for visualizing and reporting with actuals on the same platform. And it's also very user friendly and the modern technology for the planning and the business intelligence needs. And we connect to nearly all source systems of our clients with this package because actuals are really essential for this approach to check the performance afterward, financial performance after you complete the planning during the year and give your decisions as a data-driven decisions. And we provide budget and reporting management via a single point and make budget comparisons by integrating with ERP, just like as I said, and create an agile financial planning systems with the fundamentals of zero-based budgeting approach. And it's a very quick implementation. It takes approximately 9 weeks to begin from scratch. You don't need any hardware investment because it's on cloud and it's already deployed. The solution is already deployed. So we implement nearly in 9 weeks and go live after that. All organization zero-based budgeting plannings can be done on this platform and also visualized after the actuals began to occur. So zero-based budgeting package, which we call Z-Pack, is ready to use for all those who want to change their spending habits and jump into a new budgeting approach for zero-based budgeting.
That's great. Thank you, Fatih and Ercan, for joining me today and for sharing your knowledge of zero-based budgeting and for your tips on how SMEs can implement this approach successfully. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the UVARs cast. I've been your host, Anna Collette. For more information on United VARs, please visit our website, www.united-vars, that's VARS.com, where you'll also find a blog related to this episode.